Welcome to Gumption.
Hi.
Hello, how are you all?
I have a jar.
Of doom! Oh no, wait, it was mystery, right?
Yeah.
Mystery.
Well,
I
it
like
depends
the
what the
jar of
topic is.
doom, though. It does.
If it's a topic I know nothing about, which pretty much is every week,
So,
then
okay, we're
jar
picking
of
this
doom.
topic. This topic is the one that we picked. I picked. When we do this next, we need to divide the list of ideas into three, so each one of us has a jar, and then we can take turns, and then it'll be better.
Okay,
All right.
That's a good idea.
I feel bad being the one who gets.
I
to
could
pick
make
up
up. I could make up a whole bunch of
bad
topics.
women.
Oh, bad
Ooh.
women. Okay.
That should be fun.
That's
a very
interesting.
general topic.
Who do we describe it? Who do we define as bad women? I think of Maleficent. Maleficent.
Maleficent.
Yeah.
I don't, but
that's-
she's not really bad though.
She kind of is.
I think
isn't
of
she?
what's her name, Regina from Once Upon a Time. She's more evil.
Is she?
But
Well, she
also
starts
occasionally-
out more evil.
She occasionally does good stuff though, doesn't she? Because she sort of flips and
yeah, but
flops.
she always ends up being bad. I don't like how she flips and flops. I was watching Lost Girl, which is a really good. It's like urban fantasy, but it's a TV show. Which
I love that
happens very
series.
often. It's really, really good. There's one character named Vex, and he's
Oh, I
called
love
Vex on
Vex.
purpose. He's
I
awesome.
totally love that.
He
But
flip
he's not a
flops.
woman.
Well, no, he's not a bad woman, but he does cross dress sometimes.
He does. And he
That's
tends to
another
do
reason.
makeup
That's
tips.
another reason to like that show. They're very. They don't
They're
limit
gender
themselves. Yeah, they're gender fluid.
Yeah.
That's the right word. Thank you.
Gender
But
fluid. Nice.
Vex changes from being good to being evil for logical reasons, and his personality is very I'm gonna be annoying just because it's fun. So he finds it fun to be annoying, but then his intentions are good some of the time, and some of the time they're not. But there's always a reason that makes sense. He's never evil to be evil or good to be good, and I think that's what they were trying to do with all of the potentially evil characters in Once Upon a Time, but they didn't do it well. They made them almost too. This is why I call them flip floppers. It's like they're bipolar, except that their high versus low changes too fast. Real bipolar people don't change every 2 seconds.
Yeah, and it's not, and it draws you out of the story, and it completely,
Right.
you know,
it makes
you
me
stop.
annoyed, and I actually did. I stopped watching Once Upon a Time in the middle of season 2 because I didn't like how every episode she was different. She fell in a different category.
Yeah, I stopped watching it too, and for similar reasons, I didn't find it as interesting as I thought I might.
Yeah.
So what other bad women? You know who I think is a bad one is Snow White's stepmother.
Yeah, but I also think of the femme fatale from film one.
Like Body Heat or something like that.
I don't know any of them by name. I watched a bunch in high school English class.
Well,
The
Body
femme
Heat
fatale
is
was
a
always
thing.
often a misunderstood woman. She was just trying to make
but,
her way in this world, and
But it depends on whether the woman was. It
She just
depends
got
on
killed
the
off.
specific one because the one I'm thinking of, the woman ends up being the murderer.
okay. And everyone
But
gets
she's
tricked into
got that.
thinking.
Well, she's got that she's using the male stereotypes of what a woman's role should be as a weapon to take advantage of these guys and to succeed at getting away with this murder.
Yeah. So she blinds them with her
that's
attractiveness and her.
That's a big movie theme starting in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Like the Joan Crawford and I can't remember her name. I see her face. But there's a couple of women who would get cast Barbara Stanwyck, I think, would get cast as that women with very strong features that are almost mannish.
Mm.
So you get the impression they're strong. And Kathleen Turner did a Body Heat remake in the 90s, maybe. And that's an interesting movie. The original was interesting because it was a shocker to audiences. I'm going to spoil it for everybody who hasn't seen it in the last 40 to 20 years, depending on which movie. But basically, the woman is talking to an insurance investigator, I think he is. And
okay, this is definitely the movie that I'm thinking of.
Okay, and she gets him to commit the murder on her husband because he thinks that she's vulnerable, that she's in a dangerous situation, but it turns out that's not true.
She's not. Yeah.
I did see that one too.
Shocker.
So that's the woman kind of pretending to be
She's using
something.
Her abilities to manipulate people.
Yeah. But definitely with feminine wiles. Definitely it's a very feminine manipulation.
What about that one that Sharon Stone was in, where she does the leg crossing? What was that one?
You know, I've never
seen
She was.
That.
What was that? I haven't. Because that scene is so famous.
Yeah.
It's Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone and somebody else. What was that called?
It's not the same one where
they Maltese Falcon, right?
No. This is like a
I'm bad
in the 80s or something.
Maltese Falcon's a little different because it's
it is a little different.
Because I mean the detective is really it's more his story than it is. But there are always in the noir detectives of the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
There's always a woman.
There's always a femme fatale, yeah. And you never know when she walks in whether she's really
good or bad.
He really should protect her, or he could. He doesn't. That's the thing about the noir is he doesn't know either, but he still does it. Do either of you listen to?
Because they're all
Garrison Keillor. You probably don't, Trudy, because he's very American, but he does it. Garrison Keillor show, and he does a guy noir little radio play, which is exactly like that, only explicitly so because it's humor. So he's like, I didn't know if she was gonna take me for a ride or take me for a ride, and then you go on and she always takes me for a ride, the bad way.
As we're talking about all of this noir, I'm reminded once again of one of my favorite fantasy series, which is by Anne Bishop. It's the Black Jewels series, and the overarching, like in most fantasy, there's like some big overarching bad guy, right? And usually that bad person is someone who had a lot of power, who's started abusing it, and usually that person is male or a god. But in the Black Jewels series, there are two women who wanted more power than they really should have gotten, and so they managed to manipulate and scheme and kill their way to controlling the entire world.
So the two women,
and they effectively enslave all of the men in the entire world into, like, there are the warriors who are their minions, and then there are the, like, sex slaves, and then there are the, like, servants that nobody cares about. And it breaks the entire society. These two women break the entire society by doing this, because the men who are being abused go on to abuse the women in the lower ranks of society. As, like, they can't fight against the women who are above them, so they fight against the ones that are below them, and then it causes all sorts of, like, cascading problems.
That's interesting. So is the book really about... Is the book sort of start from when they first start trying to get to power, or does it start when they're already in power?
No, it starts when they're already in power, and it's about... there are a bunch of different characters, but it's about how they get destroyed. by the
That's
people
fascinating.
who did it. Yeah.
What's it called? The jeweled something.
The Black Jewels.
The Black Jewels.
The first one.
Who destroys them? Or is that a spoiler?
Don't tell me. La 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 la
I'm
la
not
la.
going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. That's a spoiler.
Who tries to spoil them? Is it men?
Those two women were not spoiled. They're just bitches who want everything ever, and they want their.
Are they nice?
Are
they nice women?
No. The evil ones, no.
One person? Oh, okay.
There are two evil ones. There's like 3 different realms. There's the realm of the dead, there's the shadow realm, and then there's the realm of the living. So the shadow realm and the realm of the living are like, I guess, sort of analogous to the real world and the world of fairy in something more traditional. But let me look up the names, because I really, really love the series, not just because it's fantasy and it happens to like fantasy, but I also think that if you read these books, I have 5 of them, and if you read them in order, so it starts with Daughter of the Blood, and then Heir to the Shadows, and then Queen of the Darkness. And then there's like another couple books that are loosely related called Shalador, or The Shadow Queen and Shalador's Lady. And if you read these books and you understand what their culture was supposed to be and how it broke and how it got fixed, you can learn a lot about the purpose of culture in a business organization and how to make it work and how to make it so that it's unlikely to break because of individual people's badness. Or how to recognize that badness before it becomes
What I love is the fact that you did this last time as well. You talk about a book or a series, and you take lessons from it that you apply to other areas of your life. I think that's hilarious.
Like, I read because I learned stuff. Anyway, but yeah, I reread the Black Jewels series
all the time
because every time I get something else out of it. I mean, the men, the male protagonists are strong men who are in touch with their aggressive side. They're not the pushover, shy, quiet guys. Okay. They're willing and able to be violent, but they have this code that says, okay, in this situation you're allowed to be violent, in this situation you have to contain yourself.
Okay.
And they have the strength of character to actually do that. Whereas a lot of the other men who are being used effectively by these main 2 women don't have the self-control to say, no, I'm not gonna be violent right now.
That's fascinating.
It's really fascinating.
I'm gonna have to go away and read it. So, okay, do you watch Game of Thrones, or have you read the books?
I've watched through like the middle of season 4 maybe, so I'm like,
because one of the worst things I've ever seen. Oh, you might not have seen it. I might be giving this away.
It's okay, you're not to spoil things for me.
Yeah,
I don't mind.
Was the last season where I think it's Stannis Baratheon is trying to. He's been told by the sorceress lady who's like
she's a bad woman.
She is. That's what I'm saying. She's a bad woman, right? And it's and so she convinces him that he has to burn alive his 12-year-old daughter at the stake to gain the kind of mojo that he needs to win this particular battle. And I have never been more horrified in my entire life than when I sat and realized that that's what they were doing. They were going to burn this little girl, and she'd been such a cute little girl. She'd been such a great character. For that, and I think apparently that doesn't happen in the books. That little piece of delight was something that they made up for the TV series.
What TV show is this?
Well,
so we're talking about Game of Thrones.
The current
season hasn't even happened. Yeah.
In the books, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and well, they had though that series that was last season, and that was still
Okay.
so they've taken some liberties apparently in terms of that. But yeah, so this next season that's happening now is out. You know, he hasn't released the book to go with it yet, and it's interesting as well. But and so she's now completely like she's this really lame character at the moment where she's just not doing anything because she feels like she misread Stannis, so she thought that he was going to be the one. She'd seen him standing on the castle battlements or something, and she was so convinced. And when she turned out she was wrong, she turned tail and ran. So she ran away and avoided being killed.
Of course.
And now, I think she's going to get her comeuppance when the other guy realizes that because I can't remember his name, but he was the one who really loved the little girl. And as soon as he realizes that she was the one who killed or convinced him to kill the little girl, she's going to be a goner. But anyway, but now she's just she's lost her kind of mojo. She's not as powerful and not as evil at the moment as she had always been previously.
It's not Cersei.
It's kind of interesting.
Cersei's
No.
dead.
No, this is the light. I don't know what she's called. She's called
Priestess
the
of the Light or something.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a bit vague on the names. I know who they are, but yeah. And I mean Cersei. I mean she's another, but she is kind of hard because you kind of.
Yeah,
I really don't like her.
How do you sympathize with her? But yes, you do sometimes.
You do, right? Like
Yeah.
she made that walk, man. She walked naked with people spitting and throwing blood at her and their own feces and stuff. And she did that, and you kind of have to go, well, she did that, and that was so awful. But the strength of character has to be kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Well,
what I like
awful,
about
though.
Game of Thrones characters. The Game of Thrones characters, a lot of them, good and bad, are strong, and so that's what you're looking at. It's strong characters against strong characters against strong characters instead of a lot of like weak characters.
Right, and when the strong character, when something bad happens to a strong character, they react in a way that shows their strength, even if they're a bad character like Cersei. Whereas a character who's a bad woman like the Priestess of Light, she's not actually strong. And you see that because when something bad happens to her, she runs away. And that is an act of weakness.
Yeah. Because the other character in there is Daenerys. I don't know how you say her name. The long blonde-haired lady, and you would probably consider be a good character, right? So, but she started doing all this stuff in the name of being kind of protecting the slaves and stuff that was starting to be a little bit bad. Like I was starting to not like her.
She was going too far.
Yeah, she'd gone too far. She was taking and she was killing too many other people in the name of all sorts of other, in the name of being the good person, and it was making her almost not the good person anymore. And it was
when you read
the
book as opposed to the TV show, you get a sense of how horrible her life was. I mean, really, from the get-go. And so these are the things that she learned. So she doesn't resort to them right away, but it's like then just more horrible stuff happens to her. And so finally, when she gets a little bit of power, she returns what, she got from people in power.
It's
so you
sympathize
in the book.
How the older you get, the more you realize how similar you are to your parents, and the more that freaks you out. It's kind of like that. Yeah.
But isn't that awful, the idea that, I mean, for people who don't have parents that they don't like or don't admire, and the thought that maybe one day you're going to be more like them.
Even those of us who have parents that we do like and admire get freaked out when we do.
Yeah. I mean, I like my parents, but I wouldn't necessarily want to be exactly like them.
Well, no, it's always the things that you're like, oh my gosh, I never wanted to do that you notice the most.
Yeah. No, that's funny. Anyway, so the Game of Thrones is just fascinating, and but now the last couple of episodes, I'm starting to like Daenerys again because they've changed a little bit, and she's gone back to kind of being the underdog almost again.
She's self-corrected, sort of, maybe. I don't know.
Well, she does
watch that much.
That in the books.
Sorry?
I haven't seen the TV show. I don't think I could watch it. Too violent. I saw Saturday Night Live had this is off the topic of bad women, but it was still funny, had a skit about, I think it was not last week, but the week before, about how slow the opening was, where like Jon Snow is dead, Jon Snow is dead, Jon Snow is dead, and they're like giving these pontificating speeches over his dead body, and then the characters, it's like they're playing like character actors. They're like, seriously, can't we just get to the action part? And they just keep repeating that over and over.
What's really funny is
I don't know.
What's really funny is I saw like I think it was like a Jonathan Ross, who's a UK talk show host. He had the actor Kit Harington, on his show before, like it was the end of the season, and he was trying to trick him into saying that he was really alive again. And I watched it after we knew that he'd come back, and it was just really funny watching him, and he was just kind of going, yeah, no, I'm definitely dead. I'm so dead. I'm dead like a doornail. And
well, he was dead.
Yeah, and then he came back, but and then he was saying how they were saying, oh, but you were on the set for a wee while at the beginning of the new season. He's like, yeah, no, because I was lying around being dead for a good couple of months. And literally, he was kind of like, they did a lot of, like, it was, what episode was it? The second or third episode, I think, that he actually came back to life again. So
yeah, it's
maybe
from
the second.
Everything I read, it took a really long time, but you know.
I think that's because they've built up so much that when someone gets killed, they're dead.
Yeah,
there was a lot of negative.
So, like, they wanted people to believe that, even though people didn't want to believe that.
Well, I didn't believe it because I like him. He was one of my favorite characters.
I wanted to believe it too. I don't think in
the
books,
but like there were a lot of people's favorite characters that ended up dead.
No, but he was the favorite. Like, no one else. Like, the same thing would be with Tyrion. If they kill off Tyrion and if they kill off Daenerys, I'd be a bit annoyed. Anyone else, I'd be fine. But those two, I don't understand. It would be just kind of, it would annoy me a lot. I would, to the point where I might stop watching. And Jon Snow, those three. Anyone else, they can be goners.
Anyone else, you can live with it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. So what other bad women do we know? Like, what does it take to be a bad woman? Do they have to do something bad, or do they have to be bad at heart? Are you a bad woman if you're a good person generally, but you do something really horrible?
Well, we can go back to the biblical archetype. So
I think
to make you kicked out of the Bible, Lilith. So I mean, she's not in the official versions anymore.
Yeah.
And, she's just in the Apocrypha.
But I think to be truly bad, you have to have flawed morality.
Have to have what? Oh, flawed morality?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think most
because if you are consciously if you're consciously choosing to go against your own sense of what's right and wrong for a reason,
isn't that almost worse? That's almost worse. It's like you know it's wrong, but you do it anyway.
Thought through why it is that you're willing to do this thing that you wouldn't otherwise be willing to do. So you're actually thinking about why you're going to go kill this person or do this other thing to this person. Whereas when you have a flawed morality, you're going to do whatever you're going to do, and there's no reasoning with you. Like, there's no way to have an argument with you to get you to change your mind and do the right thing.
But who says what's right and wrong? That's the interesting thing. It's like flawed morality. Where does the line end?
Well,
maybe are you a murderer if you
push those boundaries. We really push it to see how far we can make the wrong thing right.
I think that's the point of fiction and good TV and good movies.
Experiment without actually hurting anybody.
Yeah. You know, if I were Cersei, would I have done what she did? Probably not.
Maybe, because you might have been grown up in that environment.
No,
where you were
growing up in that environment with the personality that I have.
But you've got quite a strong
personality. There are things that I would have done in that environment that I wouldn't do in real life, but I don't think I would have done everything that she did exactly the same way, because she's a different person from me, and her way of deciding what to do and what not to do is very different. Right? This is why I love reading
a
fiction.
good example of what you're talking about. But a good example of what you're talking about is Lady Macbeth. Because the whole point of Macbeth is that they talk about what they're going to do for a long time. I mean, well, relatively speaking, within the play. So they contemplate what they're going to do. They tell each other that it's a bad thing. But then Lady Macbeth then starts convincing Macbeth that he has to do it to be, you know, a good leader. So.
Well, and I think that's an example of what Trudy was saying.
Well, I thought it was an example of what you were saying, where if they think about it and they know it's wrong, because I don't think Cersei.
No, because
thinks what she does is wrong.
I was saying that, but what I was saying was that when your moral system says yes, it's okay to do that, and it's a bad thing from the rest of our perspective, then you're a bad person. If your moral system says it's not okay to do this, but you feel like you have to do it anyway for a reason, that's not quite the same. You're still a bad person, but it's not. To me, it's not what I mean when I say you're a bad person. Like, you're not evil. You're bad, but you're not evil. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I still struggle with the definition myself.
Yeah. I don't know, because I think also that our morality changes depending on your culture and where you're from, and maybe even your time zone.
That's why I'm saying that it's based on your own internal moral system. I don't think you can have people fair.
Like you said, Kelly, that like Cersei wouldn't think that what she was doing was wrong, and I think you're right. She would say, I'm protecting my family, I'm protecting my country, I'm protecting all of the most important things by doing these things that I do, and that's having morals. That's what you know. So
right. So her moral system is it's okay to do whatever it takes to protect these certain things that I care about.
Yeah, and I guess that's a moral code. Whether that's a moral code that makes her a bad person is maybe that's not.
Yeah. That's where the gray area comes in. But I don't know. I don't think it's fair to judge whether someone's good or bad based on like my personal moral code. I think you have to look at their code and what they believe and why they're justifying things, and then you either agree with them or you don't agree, or you understand them or you don't understand them.
Right, so one of the things that I think, again, I'm going to get away from women for a second, but one of the things that in my trying to figure out who's evil and who's not evil is if you're willing to torture people for, if you enjoy torturing people for whatever reason, to me that puts you on the evil side of the equation.
Right.
But then the TV show 24 kind of made a whole fetish about torture as a good thing because miraculously they always were torturing the people who actually had the real information they needed instead of torturing
and happened to actually give them the
truth they were talking about. Yeah. So, they turned torture into like this moral imperative, which was quite interesting. I still didn't agree with them, but it stretched my thinking a little.
The kind of person that scares me the most is someone who you can't argue with. You can't say, don't kill me because of this reason, because of whatever. It's someone who doesn't care whether or not they kill you. So, and then we've had a couple of things happen where people have been high on meth, or P, as we call it here, methamphetamine. I don't know what you call it in the States, but meth, yeah. And
I think there is a slang term for it, but I don't know what it is.
Do you use the term P? We call it P in New Zealand, and I don't think anywhere else. Anyway,
I haven't heard that.
No,
I heard that, I think people were talking about urine.
Yeah, right. It's weird. No, it's just the letter P. I don't even know where it comes from. I'm an innocent in terms of this particular drug, but it kind of messes with their brains. And like we had this one where this guy attacked a woman with a samurai sword, and stuff like this, like where it's kind of just they go a bit crazy.
Scary.
And it's kind of like you can't argue with that person. You kind of they've lost their kind of rational thinking mind,
Well,
and that to me is.
But
scary.
I completely
Yes.
agree with you that that's evil. But I think that there are people who don't need to be on drugs to have that state of.
Which I suppose is even more like psychotic or what do you call it? Like the sociopathic behavior, like Hannibal Lecter or something like that.
I don't think it's sociopathic. I think it's psychopathic.
Psychopathic.
But the two things are very similar, but they're different, and I don't. Here comes the Wikipedia.
Dun dun dun. Here comes our savior.
I don't think the psychiatric information on this is very useful right now. I don't think they know what's what, and they're still working on it, and they have some really dumb stuff, and it annoys me.
Okay, what's the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath? I remember someone explained it to me once. The two words are so similar that I mixed the two up.
The sociopath sounds like it's something to do with society or social behavior, whereas the psychopath is maybe, I don't know, I'm not really sure.
Most experts believe that psychopaths and sociopaths share a similar set of traits. People like this have a poor inner sense of right and wrong. They also can't seem to understand or share another person's feelings.
So a lack of empathy, which maybe is a definition.
A key difference between a psychopath and a sociopath is whether he has a conscience.
So which one has a conscience?
A psychopath doesn't have a conscience. If he lies to you so he can steal your money, he won't feel any moral qualms, though he may pretend to. He may observe others and then act the way they do so he's not found out. A sociopath typically has a conscience, but it's weak. He may know that taking your money is wrong, and he might feel some guilt or remorse, but that won't stop his behavior. Both lack empathy, but a psychopath has less regard for others.
Okay.
Someone with this personality type sees others as objects he can use for his own benefit.
I think they need more.
They're not all in real life. They're not always fun.
Anyway, so they're all just basically, I mean, someone who has no empathy for others and has no sense of right and wrong is potentially quite as someone who's going to go after whatever they want. And you hope that they want something innocent and nice rather than power and world domination, right?
Yeah. Well, what scares me is that empathy is something that people shed when they're really afraid. And so a political system, a cultural, whoever is controlling the cultural system can actually increase fear and reduce empathy. And it's happened in our time.
Well, and this is why it's interesting to read and to watch apocalypse stories like The Walking Dead or Alien Invasion ones where you have something that happens that causes the political system to collapse, because that's another exploration of
it doesn't even have to completely collapse.
Who would lose their empathy and who wouldn't, and why?
But all you have to do is look back at the Nazi regime. Sorry?
Right, but it can also be very situational, because in the American South there were a lot of lynchings, and the people who did these lynchings firmly believed that they were lynching somebody, evil, quote unquote, even though, later on it would be like, well, how could they even think this? It made no sense. But they were completely convinced that they were right and they were doing a heroic thing.
There's a German mystery TV show that my mom has been watching called Weissensee. And it's set in East Berlin during the time of East Germany. And it's about this family, and basically this family is just trying to survive. But you can't trust anyone. So like different members of the family are telling the secret police about different other members of the family. So you can't have a proper family gathering because you don't know who you can trust even within your own family, because everyone has to be seen as supporting the regime, so everyone's telling on everyone. It's very interesting.
Well, you think about the way people acted. You get a lot of the German people who acted a certain way under the Nazi regime, who allowed certain things to happen, and they weren't bad people. They were just that was the norm. That was the environment.
That was the only way they could survive. And there comes a point where survival is more important than morality, and that's why I like reading and watching TV, because that's how you explore. Okay, if this ever happens, what am I going to do? How am I going to respond?
Sometimes you don't know until you're actually in that environment. Sometimes
So a lot of the times you won't ever know until you're actually in that environment. But it gives you, it's like when you're learning to play a musical instrument, you have to practice certain things in order to be able to play an actual piece of music. And so I think by talking about these stories and watching the shows and thinking about them and reading the books and thinking about them, you're giving yourself practice for when you do get yourself in a bad situation. And you're giving yourself practice at noticing when a neutral situation is going towards bad, so that you can either get out or change things before they get really bad.
Yes.
I am fairly confident that there will be no zombie apocalypse. However, my husband is obsessed with The Walking Dead, and he has a plan on how he will get back from the city to our house. He's going to use all the waterways in Auckland. There's a lot of them. And then I pretty much think he thinks I'm a goner. I don't think he thinks that I'm going to survive very long in the zombie apocalypse. I'm too soft. And I think, so he's basically got this whole plan involved of how he's going to look after our daughter Zoe through the zombie apocalypse, and the things that he's going to do to fortify our house and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God. No, Zoe's fine, right? Me, I do karate, for crying out loud. Surely I'd be of some use, but no, apparently not.
No, you're getting too close to the zombies, they could bite you.
Yeah, maybe that's the whole point. I need to learn some kind of stick weaponry or something. Not like he knows stick weaponry. Oh my God! But anyway, he just thinks that he's going to be the one who's going to have to survive to look after Zoe, because it's not going to be me apparently. I don't know. I reckon I might.
But if the zombies get to you before he gets home, then they will have gotten Zoe too, right?
I know. So right, you'd think that I would have to be. Anyway.
I have more confidence in you. I think you can tough it out.
Yeah, I reckon. And that's the thing. It's kind of like, okay, so if I had to be the kind of meat eater who had to kill the animals before I ate them, I would be all on board the vegetarian train. I like having a distance.
I would still eat.
No, I would be on that vegetarian train because I just cannot. I could not actually kill the animals, but I think if it's a fight for survival, if it's you or the other person, then you just do it. Like, it's amazing what I think comes out.
It's legally allowed.
Yeah, right? Although if it was a zombie apocalypse, it would be like, But does that make me a bad person? Well, in zombies, you can't. Doesn't really matter if you're killing off zombies. But if it was something else, I don't know. Am I a bad person if I'm in a new environment? The apocalypse has happened, and there's only a few survivors, and half of them are cannibals, and I know that they're going to be out to get me. If I get them before they get me, it's still killing a person.
Have you read The Girl with All the Gifts?
No.
Okay.
What's that one?
It's a zombie novel that's very interesting, because basically there are some zombies who are a little bit different. They're children, and they're teachable. Sorry.
She's coughing. They're teachable.
I'm sorry. I'm still not over this bug thing. But they're teachable. But they can still, turn you into a zombie, and they'll still try and eat you. So they're trying to figure out why these zombies are different, but they're still treating them very horribly. And that's the point of the book.
Have either of you seen the Netflix show about the zombie who's like a coroner?
Oh, is it called iZombie.
or
The
something.
one I was thinking of was like that Zombie Nation where the guy's blue and he's like the only zombie not to be a zombie or something. But anyway, there's iZombie is that girl,
Yeah.
but I don't
I don't
know
know.
anything more. She looks interesting though. I will give you that. But we're still not
I'm
talking about
so
bad.
not a zombie person.
No, me either. I hate the thought of it. I don't know why I put us on the zombie track. It was just because Peter always
Because
talks
we were
about.
talking about the apocalypse, I brought it up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So who is bad? Who can we think of who is borderline? Are there real people, real women who you can think of
Real
who are
women who are possibly bad.
bad women?
Mm,
All I can think of is that couple in the UK who basically were serial killers for years, and she helped him, and I think she might have been bad. I can't remember their names.
yeah.
It's years ago.
Well, my brother's birth mom is bad.
Oh gosh, that sounds.
Do you want to know about her?
Do you want to tell on a podcast about her?
I don't know. Well, but it's unclear how much of her badness is her and how much of it is and the post-traumatic.
Isn't that interesting? It's like a drug. A drug takes the humanity away from someone.
Well, it's drugs, and she grew up in an abusive environment, and became abusive because of that, and then,
See, that's the thing, right? So often you get these bad people, and they have a bad story.
Yeah,
they have horrible things happen
usually,
to them.
I think even the psychopaths and sociopaths, in order to become violent, I think something has to happen to them that makes it so they have to be violent in order to get what they want. But they always want, like, and nobody is bad. Nobody kills people just to kill people. They always have a reason, and sometimes that reason is, oh well, it's fun.
Yeah.
Which is a dumb reason, but it's still a reason, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
usually
it's,
so now I'm thinking of King Lear, because King Lear has 3 daughters, and they're all very strong women. And the older 2 are very ambitious, and they do all sorts of horrible things in the name of love, because each one of them wants to rule the entirety of their King Lear's country. Whereas the youngest one, who's the only one who's actually good, refuses to lie and exaggerate how much she loves her father, so she gets exiled, and then like all of this bad stuff happens, and it takes the entire play before King Lear realizes his mistake. And by then it's too late, because he's already given up everything.
I hadn't even read
that is
King Lear, but that's just depressing.
It's really, really well. I don't. You need to watch it. And I don't have a good recommendation of a version to watch, because I don't know that there are movie versions.
But it is one of those ones where like everybody dies, so it is pretty depressing.
It's not done very often because it's a very dark play.
But it is interesting because it does have 3 strong women in it.
Yeah. Well,
I
and
guess Shakespeare did have strong women.
The strong women are manipulating the men, as well as leading in their own name. Like, they are the ones inheriting. Their husbands are just their husbands. And it's interesting that Cordelia, the youngest one, she is the only one that's unmarried, I think.
I can't remember. You might be right, though, because that would, you get your full entrance into society probably upon marriage in that society.
There's a Laurence Olivier version.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Oh, there's a 10.
There's a bunch of movies for TV of King Lear. There's one
I don't think I would like it.
With Ian McKellen.
I don't. My preferred version of that movie is Cordelia, would come back and he would recognize his mistake, perhaps dying in some brutal fashion, but at last minute leaving his whole entire
Well,
worth and
it
being
does. It has a
to
happy
her.
ending. It has a happy ending. She does come back. She does make everything right at the end.
Okay.
But there's a lot of bad stuff that happens. It's not a tragedy.
Yeah, a lot of bad stuff. And
Yeah.
I think she's, most of the rest of them are dead, so.
Okay. Well, as long as she's happy, I don't mind. That sounds
There's
good.
one with Ian McKellen. I want to watch this one.
Okay.
Ian McKellen as King Lear.
Okay. So, sounds good. Cordelia. Cordelia's the one to watch, all right. Cordelia might be a good name for a character.
Lois McMaster-Griswold used it, and whenever I read her Cordelia's Honor, it's really 2 other books, which I have to look up because I can't think of.
Because she's the Miles's mother, isn't she, Cordelia?
Yeah.
Miles.
I'm glad you know who I'm
say his
talking
name.
about. So many people
Yeah,
don't know who I'm
I don't-
talking about. She's like
I don't
my
know, I
favorite
can-
science fiction author ever.
Yeah, no, I love Lois McMaster-Griswold. She's one of my heroes, actually. She's the one that I always...
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's okay. Cordelia's Honor is how I read it but it was combined. It's really Barayar and Shards of Honor.
Okay.
And whenever I read Cordelia's Honor, I always imagined that she named her Cordelia because she has a similar strength of character to the Cordelia.
King Lear. That's nice. Maybe she did. Or maybe she just looked up in the baby names book and liked the name Cordelia.
It's a good name. I like it. But this is also the 3 sisters are Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. And I think it's interesting that Cordelia has the most feminine name of all 3.
Well, the most recognizable name of the.
I mean, they're all female names, but her name is.
What are the other names? Goneril, did you say?
Goneril and Regan.
No, Regan's not so bad, but the other one, Goneril, sounds. But...
Yes, a little like an STD.
Yes, thank you. I didn't want to say it out loud, but yeah.
It does. I mean, everyone's thinking it. Might as well just admit it.
Thank you, Kelly, for just saying it. Thank you for being the upfront one.
But, I mean, other countries do have names that we don't necessarily know what to do with.
Yeah. I don't think that's a UK name, though, is it? I mean, it's not like it's a name that's used in the UK.
Well, where is King Lear? Is he Greek?
It's fantasy. I think.
I thought he was based on a myth.
Was it?
I thought he was, but I'm not positive. I'll have to look that up. I'm on my phone, so I can't look it up.
I'm not going to look up. Aurelia can look it up.
I'm the looker up.
You're the look-up lady. You're the look-up lady today. I want to talk about some more bad women. I'm trying to think of other bad women.
Derived from the legend of Lear of Britain, a mythological pre-Roman Celtic king.
Ooh. Celtic.
There you go. Pre-Roman.
So those do sound very Celtic, the names.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I guess they do. Although, what's the girl that we like? What's her name?
Cordelia.
Cordelia doesn't sound very Celtic.
No, I think it is.
Is it Cordelia? Oh well, maybe. It doesn't.
I don't know.
So Goneril's the oldest, Regan's the middle, and Cordelia's the youngest.
Okay, I've got a title on Google, The 10 Most Evil Women in History, and I'm going to read you out who they say they are.
Tell us.
Okay, Irma Grease. Good grief.
Who?
She, born October 1923, died December 1945, was employed at the Nazi concentration camps of Ravensbrück and Auschwitz, and was the warden of the women's section. She was convicted for crimes against humanity and sentenced to death. She loved torture via different painful methods and wore heavy boots as a habit. Ugh. She was executed at 22 years old.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
well, who knew? I always think of it as being
She was
men. But,
executed at 22, so she was doing all of this stuff when she was like 18 and 19 and 20?
well, she died in 1945, so yeah, I guess so.
Oh my God.
She
There's a
was young.
story there.
I
I
know.
mean, really? Whoa.
So the next one is Myra Hindley. I can see that this is going to actually depress me because these are real people.
I was going to say, these are real people, yeah.
So she was an English serial killer in partnership with Ian Brady. She committed the rapes and murders of 5 small children. Together, these two monsters were responsible for kidnapping, sexual abuse, torture, and murder of 3 children under the age of 12 and 2 teenagers, 16 and 17. Hindley's 17-year-old brother-in-law tipped her off to the police. Okay, Isabella of Castile. She was 1451. Was born, and she was Isabella the Catholic, was Queen of Castile and Leon. She and her husband Ferdinand II of Aragon brought stability to the kingdoms, and became the basis for the unification of Spain. But what did they do? They ordered the conversion or exile of their Muslim and Jewish subjects. She doesn't sound that bad. Why was she so
Doesn't that have
evil?
a name? Isn't that the, oh my
The
gosh.
The beginning of the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, the Inquisition. Thank you.
Yeah, it does kind of
I thought
sound.
the Inquisition was later, though. But I'm not.
Don't know.
In the 14th.
Well, she died in 1504, so I guess it'd be late 1400s. I don't know. She financed Christopher Columbus's 1942 voyage. No, 1492. Sorry, that would have been very different. Voyage that led to the opening of the New World. Beverly Elliot, Angel of Death. Beverly Elliot is an English serial killer, one of the 10 most evil women, convicted for murdering 4 children, attempting to murder 3 other children, and causing grievous bodily harm to a further 6 children.
So I have a question.
Nurse, though, right?
How many like there are a lot of murderous people out there who abuse and kill children. So how many people do you have to kill and abuse to get on one of these lists?
Well, so far these women seem to have been killing at least 3 or 4.
Right, but there's probably hundreds of people who have killed 3 or 4 people, right?
I think a lot of it's mostly
like, the
men.
record.
I think it's one point would be it's a lot mostly men,
since
but
people
2
have
they have to
started
be discovered.
recording crime, I'm pretty sure that if you looked at the records, there would be more than a handful. Because
maybe these are just the most well known, or potentially the only they've been discovered. Maybe I don't know. Queen Mary I of England apparently is on the top 10 most evil women. Her brutal persecution of Protestants caused her opponents to give her the sobriquet.
That's why she didn't rule for very long.
Bloody Mary. She was the only child born of the ill-fated marriage of Henry VIII and his first wife, Catherine. Belle Guinness, standing 6 feet tall.
She wasn't the only child born, but she was the only child surviving.
Yeah. Okay, here you go. This one's American. Belle Guinness was one of America's most degenerate and productive female serial killers. She was an imposing and powerful woman of Norwegian descent. It is likely that she killed both her husbands and all of her children at different times, but it is certain that she murdered most of her suitors, boyfriends, and 2 of her daughters, Myrtle and Lucy. The motive was greed, pure and simple. Life insurance policies and assets stolen or swindled became her source of income.
I probably saw this on some movie, some Lifetime movie. This sounds
That's horrific. Her death toll put her death toll at more than 20 over several decades, but some claiming that she killed in excess of 100 people.
Well, if she killed that easily, it would be hard to tell.
Yeah. I'm just shocked. I mean, the other ones were 1 or 2. This one is like, oh my God. These people.
She would definitely qualify as the psychopath because, it was like, well, it's going to be convenient to kill this person, and there wasn't any, probably her only considerations were, how do I do it so I don't go to jail? Because that would be inconvenient.
Well, I think most of these people could be described as either sociopathic or psychopathic. the other.
I think people with a lot of power, like Isabella of Spain,
And Mary, they
would be
have.
different. And Mary
But
was
at the
crazy.
same time, the fact that they're persecuting people on a religious basis shows a lack of empathy,
Mm.
or a selective empathy.
Or maybe just as an us versus, there's that whole us versus them mentality that people get. Like, they can be the most kind, caring people as long as you're within their own kind of tribe of whatever it is, whether it's to a nation or to a religious group or to a whatever. But anyone outside of that becomes, you know, like you think of, Kelly was talking about before of all the lynchings down in the South. I mean, if you were a white male or female down the South, then that was your group. And if maybe it seemed like a black person had done something wrong, and you lynched them, then that wasn't such a big deal because they weren't part of your group or tribe. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's
so
what it is. You other them, and
yeah,
you other them, and then you take that otherness and make it lesser than you. I mean, this is something Milgram did this with his experiment, and it was so chilling because it happened so fast. You take college students who are basically peer, you separate them into guards and prisoners just on a completely random basis, and then you give the guards the power and the prisoners no power, and you know, within 24 hours they were acting as if they had, you know, it was real. I mean, people in that experiment were actually having psychological reactions to it long afterwards. Some of even the guards who found themselves, you know, doing horrific things. I mean, horrific in terms of somewhat sadistic, mean. I mean, nobody did anything, you know, nobody killed anybody, but a lot of people were very uncomfortable at how easily they found being in power and just shutting off the empathy.
And also there's another experiment that's along similar lines, which is the one where they're giving electric shocks to someone in another room.
Yeah,
and it's also about that hierarchy of power. Like, they get told to do it by someone who's higher up than them, and then they just do it without question. So they lose their morality, their sense of what's right and wrong, because someone higher up has told them to do it.
Over to someone else.
Yeah,
so it's like they no longer are taking personal responsibility, making a personal judgment about doing something. Although I do think, because I remember, I think it's like 20% of people I think would refuse, but I could be wrong. Maybe it wasn't quite that high. But there is still a significant number of people who refused.
Yeah, well, that's good.
So
I've seen some examples.
Like everybody did it.
Yeah. Well, I've seen examples of it, and I've seen where people have gone, oh, no, I don't think I can do that. That'll hurt them. And the person goes, no, it's your job. You just have to do it. Like, just don't. So they kind of try. They get pushed back, and then they do it as well. Like, these are someone starts to do it. And I think I would do that. I would be like, oh, no, I'm not sure about this. And then they go, no, you have to do it. And then I would do it. I think I would. Because if it was...
They use different persuasive methods. So sometimes they would say, well, they signed up for it. And sometimes they would say, it's your duty or whatever, to see which one worked the best. And I don't know what I would do. I mean, I like to think now that I know about these experiments, I would just say, forget it. Because I think the secret to stopping this kind of stuff is you have to stop it super early. You have to stop it as soon as it gets uncomfortable for you. You can't wait, because once it's like that.
Once you've justified breaking your own moral code in a small way, you'll
continue
to use that same justification for bigger and bigger and bigger things.
Because you're othering these people without even realizing it. You're devaluing them. You're disconnecting your own empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we should end.
Yeah. Okay.
So women are not bad.
Don't let anyone take your empathy away.
Don't make anyone an other. And no electrocuting people, even if it's your college professor telling you to do it.
All right. See you all next week.
See you. Bye.